Early 2019 was when I first came across The Farewell on Amazon Prime. I remember it boasts of having earned a Sundance Award and accurately encapsulating the collision of the traditional Chinese practice of shielding elders from their terminal illnesses with shifting modern values influenced by the West. I promptly dismissed the film. As a Taiwanese teenager just trying to survive in the vicious ecosystem of an American high school, I severed ties to everything that bound me to Taiwan: the language, the cultural quirks, etc. I saw a lot of myself in the main character, Billy, a first gen Chinese American estranged from her Chinese heritage due to her early encounters with racism when her family first immigrated to the US. I saw my everyday life, stumbling over basic Mandarin Chinese sentences and requesting translations during family gatherings, in much of Billy's actions. It was like seeing the worst parts of myself reflected right back at me, and I didn't feel ready to confront any of that until a year later. When I finally sat down to watch the film, one thing stuck out to me: this discrepancy of sorts. The background music of The Farewell sounds reminiscent of the Western classical Vivaldi concertos my sibling would agonize over for hours on the violin. Take, for example, one of the film's seminal tracks, Grandma on the Roof. The embellished liquid strokes, the trills, and the distinctly European instruments resemble those heard in Vivaldi's Winter from his famed Four Seasons. Suffice to say, the sound design feels very Western and almost mirrors how American Billy is. Simultaneously, the film features a Chinese subject matter. How Chinese is the topic at hand? As an NPR interview reveals, the plot is pulled straight out of Chinese American director Lulu Wang's lived experience with deceiving her grandmother per the urges of her Chinese family. The music thus feels foreign, displaced, and jarring, even. I wondered if this juxtaposition of the music rooted in the Western classical canon against the Chinese topic was a deliberate creative choice. And to my delight, film scorer Alex Weston confirmed my suspicions in an interview by Boston's NPR. But then a question arises: what is this discrepancy in service of? What does it gesture us toward? I think to understand how this discrepancy functions, it is necessary to highlight another striking contrast. Let's listen to the musical motif of the lie when it was first introduced. Now, not much offsets the uncomfortable silence. There's the distant rumbling in the background, the lonely plucking of the cello, and the wispy soprano voice. The ultra simplistic arrangement prompts us to ask the question of, is that it? And it builds an uneasy anticipation for something bigger, something more melodramatic. Ironically, what occurs on screen doesn't correspond to the heavy mood cultivated by the motif of the lie. We follow Billy boarding the subway and attending a birthday party in a very matter of fact manner. It feels cold and clinical almost. Contrary to expectations, the ostensibly Western music, as opposed to the Chinese storyline, shoulders much of the emotional weight and captivates the audience's attention. It feels as if Lulu Wang is setting up a scenario wherein only the Western has the capacity to prevail, paralleling, well, reality. Recall how a hostile, Western influenced environments pressured Billy and I into forfeiting our heritage. And so we arrive at discerning the presence of a gross, insidious power imbalance between the West and the East, between the American and the Asian. And from here, we are propelled along Billy's journey of navigating and de escalating the conflict between two integral aspects of her very ontology.